Big press conference going down this morning at St. Patrick's Cathedral in an effort to raise some money and help out what happened in France a couple of days ago at the Notre Dame Cathedral. Cardinal Dolan's going to be there, some other religious leaders, and two guys that, man, am I proud to call teammates here as well as Bernie. They do a fantastic show every Sunday morning before Sid Sports Sunday. The Rev and the Rabbi, two of the nicest, most genial, spiritual, and lovely men you'll ever meet. And that is the Rev and the Rabbi, A.R. Bernard and Rabbi Joe. Gentlemen, good morning. I know you're at St. Patrick's Cathedral right now. I guess the press conference starts in about 40 minutes. Thanks for hopping on this morning.
Well, thank you for having us. I'm glad you got Sid and myself, Bernie and AR, two Jews, two Christians. Finally, we're even.
There you go.
We're united.
Yes. Well, we're going to start this with a personal request. Before we get to the matter at hand, which is you guys raising money today. And that is my dad's not feeling well. My dad yesterday went into congestive heart failure and had a long night. So they're going to take him today from Harris Hospital up in Monticello to Cornell this morning via ambulance. And hopefully he's going to be okay, but it's scary. My dad's getting old and he's had some heart issues. So AR and Rabbi Joe, I'm asking you both to say a little prayer for Harvey this morning when you have a chance, okay?
Absolutely. It will be our pleasure to do so.
Well, thank you. Now, on another note here, you're there today to help out after what happened in Paris a couple of days ago. Is this press conference, gentlemen, and you can start with Rabbi Joe, or however you want to do it, one at a time. This press conference today is all about raising money for that church?
Well, I think there are a few reasons. One, obviously, is to help raise funds. But also, it's for all of us to recognize that holiness is an integral part of our faith. We have holy sites, Christians have holy sites, and we have to respect the holiness of the other as well. So this is also a moral demonstration to show we're all together. I just want to make mention, very often, whenever there's a fire in a synagogue, the people who rush in here in New York are firefighters, most of whom are Christian, and they risk their lives to save tourists, to save the building. So we have this reciprocal religiosity. We're all there for one another, and I think that's what this press conference is about as well.
That is well said, Rabbi Joe. Beautiful. Reverend A.R. Bernard, speaking of what the rabbi talked about, firemen going in and rescuing, there was actually a very heroic priest in Paris. He belonged to the Paris.
Correct. He's the chaplain.
The chaplain for the Parisian fire department, and he saved, among other things, the precious crown of thorns at the Notre Dame Cathedral.
That's correct, and this is what it's about. They even the fire individuals, first responders, and others formed a human chain to pass relics out very quickly in order to preserve them. And I think that's the issue. Sacred spaces are to be protected and preserved, and it's a responsibility of the community at large. And that's why we're standing. Rabbi and I are standing with the Cardinal today. As you know, to express the solidarity of the human family. The fact that we come together to support each other, especially in times of crisis, and it demonstrates that we are connected.
In times of crisis, and by the way, talking about coincidental, or maybe not, we still don't know, but this is Holy Week. You've got Good Friday today, you had Holy Thursday yesterday, Easter coming up on Sunday, the Jewish people will have our first Seder coming up tomorrow night. So it just seems, Rabbi Joel, like a good time to get together and do something like this, even if there wasn't a fire in Paris.
Sid, before we begin the Seder, we invite all those who are hungry, all those who are needy to come sit with us. And what that says to us, that it's never too late to open the doors and make sure that those who need strength and support are given that. So Holy Week, is really, to me, a time for all of us to express our holiness, but also to respect the holiness of others. So we come together, we're separate and together, but there comes a moment when all of us have to be able to sit together at the same table and recognize the Spirit of God within each of us.
Well said, Rabbi Joe. And listen, the structure is intact, and President Macron has vowed to restore the cathedral. A lot of millionaire philanthropists donating a bunch of money, but a lot needs to be done. The roof is completely off, needs to be covered. I mean, a lot of damage was done, so it's not like, it's been resolved. Obviously, it's not. A lot of money is needed, and a lot of attention needs to be put on it.
That's true. And Sid, I will tell you, for us as Christians, as Holy Week, we celebrate both death and resurrection, and also knowing that resurrection follows death. So it's always hope. There's always new life. There's always rebuilding. There's always a new beginning.
Hey, Bernard and Rabbi Joe joining us live this morning. They do a magnificent program right before Sid Sports Sunday here on 77 WABC. Every Sunday morning, they are two of the best people you'll ever meet. You know, we don't know what causes fire in Paris yet, but we do know, if you read Newsweek last week, gentlemen, there's been a rash of issues with folks starting fires, desecrations, all over churches, all over Paris, and all over the world, quite frankly. And Rabbi Joe, we are seeing a serious spike in anti-Semitism, whether it's the Democratic Party or our synagogues here in New York City. It's kind of an ugly time right now when you look at both religions, what we're going through. Does that make this Passover holiday, Rabbi Joe, even more special?
Well, I tell you, we've learned how to extinguish fires, but we haven't learned how to extinguish anti-Semitism or the hatred of anyone who's deemed different. One thing I will tell you this, yes, there's been a spike in hatred, but there's also been a spike in outpouring of love. Look at what happened after Mother Emanuel in Charleston, South Carolina, after Pittsburgh, after Christ Church in New Zealand. Look at how many people came forward and said, we stand with you, forming protective rings around these holy sites to say, we are all with you as one. So I think, yes, there's been that spike, but let's not forget the other spike as well. And we will stand together to try to put out this hatred that never seems to go away. It's this expression of real antipathy towards those who seem to be different, and we're all different from one another.
That's true. And Reverend A.R., in the wake of this Notre Dame disaster, the three black churches that down in Louisiana that were burned down by the rotten SOB, a lot of people have stepped up in the wake of the Notre Dame disaster, again, to rebuild those churches. So it seems to have inspired a lot of people to do good things. Absolutely. We understand that we are connected. And when we see the human brokenness and woundedness manifest itself in sacred spaces, it's a call to a higher dimension of participation in society, that we're connected, we're part of the human family, and we must respond together and change what's been happening and becoming too consistent. And we don't want it to become so normal that we no longer pay any attention to it.
You know, gentlemen, I pointed out before you came on that last month, Reverend Bernard and Rabbi Joe, you had Curtis Martin, Hall of Fame Jet running back, and Mariano Rivera, Hall of Fame Yankee pitcher, on the same day. Yesterday, you guys are walking around up here with Allen Houston, and I know Allen's a very religious guy. He used to take Bible classes with Charlie Ward when they were teammates with the New York Knicks. But we see that a lot of these athletes, they're very quick to thank God after a game. They are very religious, some not necessarily religious, but certainly spiritual. Why do you think that's the case with so many of these athletes?
I think it's true of many people who grew up in homes where they saw parents as role models, as exemplars of faith. They learned it at home. There's a article I read years ago. Many of the values I learned were around the kitchen table. So it starts at the home, or it starts with a mentor. It starts with some person who intervened in their lives at a critical moment and inspired them to integrate faith into their lives. And we've seen so many who are great on the field, but also are great off the field, and that's what means the most. It's what you do when nobody else is looking that really, I think, is most worthwhile. And I just make one other comment to you?
By all means, Rabbi.
A few years ago in New York, there was a tragic fire at Central Synagogue on 55th and Lexington, and I'll never forget being there and seeing Cardinal O'Connor rushing over with a number of priests from St. Pat's and saying to everyone there, this is a very tragic time, but it's also going to be a moment of triumph for all of us. We're going to open the doors of all the churches in this area, and we say to the Jewish people, use our facilities until you rebuild. Our doors, our places are going to be open for all of you. That's the spirit of New York. That's the spirit we have to replicate in this world.
And Reverend,
amen to that.
Amen to
let me say also, Sid, that not only homes where values and morals are demonstrated, but in the case of Curtis Martin, coming from a home that was broken, where he didn't have those values, and he found something in football to change his life and his character, and he began to understand that there was a higher power involved, and he turned to God, and he wanted to become and give what he did not have. modeled before him in his own childhood. And those are some of the stories that come out as well.
Beautiful. Some other examples of religious sports figures: Tim Tebow, Tony Dungy. Listen, gentlemen, we're out of time, but it was an honor and a pleasure to have you on, and good luck at the press conference, and we'll keep you in our thoughts.
And we'll
Excellent.
keep
Thank you,
Father in
guys.
our
Our
prayers.
prayers.
Okay.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
See you Sunday morning. Rabbi, the Reverend, the Rabbi, check him out right before Sid Sports Sunday, 8 a.m. right here every Sunday morning. And if you haven't listened, you're missing out. These guys are a treat.
Yes.